Hello beautiful, and welcome to my little world on the internet. I wanted to share some things that came to me in a meditation the other day. As my anger towards my abusers dissipates, I begin to see that we all have things in common. I begin to have empathy for how they learned abusive patterns growing up in abusive cultures just like I did. And the empathy helps me to learn so much about myself in this world. I saw that my mother and father were not trying to be hurtful. They were just doing their best with the patterns that they learned in their own life. I saw that my rapist learned abusive patterns, and that's one reason he had really unhealthy understandings of boundaries. Doing things like watching me sleep afterwards and coming into my room at night. It's just inappropriate. It's a boundary that a 19, 20-year-old should understand. When we are hurting and we're insecure and when we're in a mentally ill place, we can easily hurt other people without even understanding because we are in a hurtful place. And people that are hurting just hurt others. Some people are just dangerous that way. I know that I've been toxic to the level that I just walked in a room and I was so toxic that I would manipulate things in the room because of that. And then there's people that get toxic to the level where they actually enjoy other people's pain, where they enjoy messing with other people, and they have a lack of empathy for others. And for some reason, in our culture, we idolize this. And I think we should really start questioning why. Because now I understand abuse didn't start when I was getting punched in the face. That's when it ended. I started being abused when my boundaries were being disrespected and the person was enjoying making me uncomfortable and making me suffer. And now I understand that when people disrespect your boundaries without empathy, you no longer owe them anything, and you should, if anything, do what you can to protect yourself, because depending how much empathy somebody lacks, they literally can kill you and think it's funny. Like my ex, when he knocked me unconscious, didn't check my pulse, which every other person I've ever spoken to, they woke up as the person was checking their pulse to see if they were alive. But I woke up to him laughing. That's a level of psychopathy that's actually really dangerous, and I think we should question why we don't think that person belongs in jail. That's the culture we live in. And I've learned that we need to see the truth of the situation, but judge with empathy for yourself and for others. And that comes through self-work and processing how we feel. Because when I spent so much time shutting off my emotions and so much energy trying to not cry about being raped, about being abused by my parents, my grandparents, my cousins, my aunts, my uncles. I've been in so many abusive situations where my boundaries were disrespected from my own family that I developed a lack of trust in people already, which also protected me. But because all I knew were those patterns, I stayed stuck in them because I wasn't willing to say, no, these are bad patterns. I don't feel good. I didn't even know that you could do that. I was completely ignorant to the fact that you can fully admit the truth of things and then say, you know what? I've been doing X, Y, and Z, and I actually really disagree with that. And I think that I shouldn't have to swallow everything that is abusive. I don't think I should have to accept being given concussions as love. And that person was trying to manipulate me into thinking that it was okay for him to give me regular concussions because he disagreed with things I said. And when we start to admit things about ourselves, like my own narcissism, where I didn't want to admit that I was wrong. My ego was so stubborn that I didn't want to admit I am stupid when it comes to relationships. I'm emotionally retarded. I'm narcissistic. And that is a mental prison that is actually hurting me. And by not wanting to admit it, I actually stayed stuck in that mental prison so much longer. And when I had the accountability of being bedridden for a year, I had the time to think about my actions and about how maybe I did get stuck in abusive patterns. Maybe I was the part of this sick pattern where there's an enabler and an abuser, and people just want to do what their ego wants and they don't want to have any accountability, and those types of people will partner up with each other. And they're truly just really insecure. I was deeply insecure because my dad made so much money, and in our house it was very patriarchal, and I felt like this subservient person that was also supposed to be the eldest child, that's a genius, that does great things, but is also like this housewife type. And it was really messed with my head because I saw all of these different patterns that were hypocritical to each other. So I had all of these weird hypocrisies that I didn't agree with. And in our family, I think that just my blood is very hypocritical because I have ancestors that fought for the North and the South. I have ancestors in Brazil that were most likely a slave wife native, because they would literally go into these tribes' villages and they would be like, oh, this man looks like he would be a good worker. This woman looks like she's really beautiful. I think we should sell her as wives. And they would just round up the beautiful women and they would be wives, and then the women they considered ugly would be slaves, and the men that didn't want to like fight them and wanted to be subservient, they allowed them to be workers and slaves as well. That's why in Brazil they actually had more slaves, and in Brazil they had more African slaves. So it's kind of interesting to be Brazilian and American at this time in history. And I think that both of those countries, probably the people want to know what I have to say, but the people in charge probably don't want accountability because they want what they want. They want to be a king, aristocratic type, an oligarch, whatever you want to call it. They want to be above others. And my upbringing, at one point, my parents were millionaires, and we did things like go to the Greenbrier and all of these wonderful things that maybe someday I'll share on here. I think it would be fun to just reminisce about before I was crippled, before I was beaten and got MS from that brain damage. But I've learned so much from all of this that I really feel a need to call out a lot of things, like how the police are not getting accountability when things go wrong. And I haven't heard anybody say this yet, but I am a person that has been fascinated with serial killers because I think that I have dated people that have actually killed. Like the person that almost killed me, I think he might have actually killed other people. I mean, when he was beating me, he told me he killed people, so I don't know if that's just to scare me or if he was like telling me the truth in one of those moments when only the victim knows the truth. It's very possible he's a serial killer in India. Like with the shit that he said, I analyzed my recording, and you'll get to hear it somewhere on the internet if you follow me and find my website and stuff. I'll probably put it there. But growing up a millionaire, there's so much that I was told I was entitled to, and I was literally like a pretty rich girl growing up at one point. That was like the role that I fit in life. But I was also raised by a scientist that had a PhD in material science and a master's in physics, and a mother that is an amazing wellness person. I don't like to use the word guru, but I guess a lot of people would call her that, but she probably doesn't like the word either. But I really like wellness, and her wellness center, she brought monks and shamans to her wellness center that I learned so much about, like how to manage pain. Like shamans actually do these crazy ceremonies where they let bugs and like all sorts of venomous things bite them, and then they'll walk on fire. Some natives will like bury themselves alive as a ceremony of doing things to push yourself as a human further so that you learn to emotionally cope with things that are crazy. And you learn how to like center yourself in the pain of being stung by, these crazy things that give you neurological symptoms that actually feel a lot like MS. Like when you watch that Brave Wilderness guy, the things he describes that happen from the bug bites, that when he lets things bite him, you should check out that channel if you're into like animals. And he lets things bite him, and he's done the Scoville scale of pain. And I regularly feel a lot of those sensations: burning, feeling electrocuted, frozen. I wrote them down somewhere in my notes, but I feel, crushed, vacuum sealed. I feel all sorts of crazy sensations. Sometimes I feel like I'm being stabbed, and it will come from inside my bone outside, which I've actually stabbed myself when I was suicidal, and I know what it feels like to be stabbed. And it's very much a weird thing when you feel something that you know is impossible to happen. And MS just taught me so much about life, because I literally have to be so centered that at any moment I'm emotionally ready to feel like I'm feeling any of those sensations. Like I'm feeling a little bit like I'm burning because my room is getting a little bit hotter because of the lights. If the temperature in a room gets too hot, I literally feel like I'm burning alive. And there was an incident where I felt like I was burning alive for 6 days, which when I looked it up, humans don't burn alive in 6 days. They die within minutes. So I literally felt something. And I've put cigarettes out. Like these tattoos actually cover up cigarette marks, and you can see a couple of them still, but I really hurt myself a lot. And it's interesting that I can compare true physical pain to neurological pain. And I would literally rather be stabbed again than go through the stabbing sensations of MS. It's such a mind fuck. It's so hard to deal with, and it's really pushed me to go mentally places that people don't have to go. And I'm grateful other people don't have to go, but I, for some reason, was forged into this really strong person through all of these things, that I was either going to die or I was going to grow a lot stronger, because it was extreme things to survive, and extreme growth happened from that. And now, one of the most beautiful things that I see is how challenges are actually opportunities for us to grow, if they're spread out. The reason that I'm able to get to this space mentally is because monetarily I was taken care of, and I was able to work on my mind. I had to undo decades of abuse and rape and all sorts of different things. I've been raped by men and women. I've been abused by men and women. I have a fuckload of stories to tell. And I now see that there are so many things in our world that I look at differently, because I've been away from society since I was beaten the last time in 2015. So many people have been complaining about Corona and being stuck at home. I've been at home since 2015. The first year, I was completely bedridden, to the point where when my parents weren't home and had to go work to put a roof over my head. I literally would pee and poop on myself as I would crawl to the bathroom. And the bathroom is really very close, 20, 30. I'm really bad at distances. I don't know, but it's the next room is my bathroom. And I would have to crawl because I literally could not stand on my own 2 feet. At 30 years old, it was so humbling for a person that grew up a millionaire and all this stuff to be like homeless and then get out of that and then move here and then become that crippled. A level of humility that I've never felt before. And it was really good for me. I grew so much from that humility. I think that the way we treat rich people actually mentally hurts them. And these situations were opportunities for me to learn how to cope with things. And when we are presented with challenges in life, instead of being mad about it, I totally think we should see challenges as opportunities. Because everybody knows what a spoiled rich kid looks like. I was totally one of those. And I know what the worst of them look like. And because I went to school with like billionaires kids, and billionaires kids are another story. And it warps your mind. I personally think that when immature people have any sort of power, they will always abuse it. And that is why for every single position in life, there should be accountability. And I'm shocked that I haven't heard anybody say that there is a connection between how the police have too much power, which gave the Golden State Killer freedom to commit crimes for over 40 years. The Golden State Killer committed so many crimes that people thought he was like 3 different people or 4 different people, I forget. But he was like the original Night Stalker, and then the guy that got arrested for being the Night Stalker was actually a copycat, and then he ended up just changing his MO because he knew how police people worked. Now that we know that somebody did that, that gives people that weren't smart enough to think of it on their own the knowledge that if I want to be a serial killer, I can go become a police officer and I will get away with it. Just like if I want to be a rapist, I can go and be a priest. That is what we are teaching people, because we are allowing priests to just brazenly rape kids. There's a report that I just heard the other day where this guy heard a police officer, or no, an FBI agent, I think it was, had a priest admit that he raped over 700 kids, and they had to let him go because his lawyers were so good. How is that helpful to society? How is that actually healthy? One thing that I've learned from all of these things is that I started asking myself, how do I become healthier? I lost all of my health. And when I was lying there peeing and pooping on myself, feeling broken, I asked myself, how do I get healthier? And the more that I asked myself that, the more I started on a really different journey than I see anybody else going on. And I'm really proud of that journey. And now that I'm in such a strong and stable foundation within that, I feel a responsibility to share, because this country is being run by really immature people that lack empathy, and that is actually because we always had psychopaths as part of our species, because we are animals that are manipulatable. And that is just, our inability to admit I can be manipulated, actually, it makes it easier for people to manipulate us. My ego was what kept me trapped in all of that. My ego literally was like, no, I couldn't be wrong about him, as he's giving me concussions. brainwashing can be done to any of us. And the moment that we think we're above it is the moment that they have us. So the more we start asking questions like, what is healthier? The healthier we become. And that is how I spent the first year bedridden. And then I started doing yoga that I couldn't do when I was a teenager. Now I have abs that are more defined than when I was a teenager because I'm struggling to gain weight as I work out as much as I can in excruciating pain each day. But there's so much in life with things like beauty. I see beauty so differently, and I want to share that perspective. Whenever I had somebody comment on my video about Brett Kavanaugh, about how I shouldn't be wearing so much makeup and I should be raped because of that. Something to the effect of that, where I've had people tell me that because I wear makeup, I deserve to be raped. And I feel so sad for people that think that, because it's just such a fundamental lack of understanding of healthy boundaries. Because what I wear is simply decoration on a body that I work really hard to maintain. I work really hard to push myself to exercise and to go further and further each day, walk more each day, do more yoga. And then also I need to take a break and not get into my ego, and I need to not overstress my body. I need to find a balance. And that is how I found what I call the center of the hurricane, where if you look at hurricanes, the eye of it is a calm place, where I feel like I'm in the eye of a hurricane of life, and it's a zombie hurricane if you ask me, where 2020 is this hurricane of chaos, and I have found the center of that, and I feel a need to share more about that, because empowerment and mental stability doesn't come from being a millionaire or any of that stuff. I was literally trying to kill myself in this bedroom when we were the richest that we ever were. I was the most suicidal that I ever was. And now that we live paycheck to paycheck, sometimes negative, I am happier than ever, and it has nothing to do with the money. The money only has to do with the fact that I can't pay my medical bills now because our system is corrupt, which is another story, because I just find it crazy that a man that works like 4 jobs with a PhD can't afford the medical bills for one of his kids. I think that's crazy. I think that says more about our country, and my dad spends so much energy like working, and probably, I know he always feels like sad that he can't afford more of my medical care, but why should a person that has brain damage be forced to pay $100,000 a year just for base level care that they need? I think that's insane. And I can be of more use to humanity with what I've learned from becoming crippled through the things that I survived than I ever would have been as the rich, spoiled brat. It's just crazy. I think it's crazy that we idolize rich, spoiled brats that literally have been devoid of so many challenges to the point that they don't know how to even be told to their face, I don't like your abuse. If somebody feels like I'm abusing them, I want to know what I'm doing that makes them feel that way so that I can assess, is this something that I want to change? Oh wow, they feel like this is abusive. Maybe this is something that I should reassess in my life. And I start questioning myself, because I see that when you do that, you can actually get out of the pattern, and then I feel healthier, because it's this prison where people can just manipulate you. And it's really sad. Me denying that I was raped was absolutely going to help nobody. And I feel so sad for all of the people that are in denial of the challenges and they don't see them as opportunities, because yes, we need that moment where we are suffering for a little bit, but sometimes we should feel bad. And if we feel bad and then we ask ourselves, should I feel bad? Then we can realize, oh my God, that person tried to make me feel bad about something that was gaslighting, and I shouldn't feel bad about that. But if I never questioned it, I would just feel bad about the things. I hope that makes sense. There were so many situations, there's so many stories I have to share, but I'm trying to make this video short and sweet because there's a lot of fundamental things we need to look at as a country, and I don't know how I'm gonna make the videos timely or anything, but as a Brazilian and American citizen, I feel a need to speak up because we are literally killing ourselves because we're emotionally retarded, and we are being manipulated because we aren't willing to admit we're emotionally retarded. The moment I admitted to myself I'm emotionally retarded, that's how I ended up bedridden, was the moment that I started growing. And now that I've grown to the level that I'm so calm, I can feel like I'm being stabbed. Like right now, I feel like my legs are starting to burn a little bit, and it's like this, it's not like a full fire, but it's definitely feeling a burning sensation that would probably make a lot of people scream. But at this point, I've literally felt pain that is so bad that screaming makes it worse. And since then, I just don't scream from pain. I was never really a screamer. I was like a stub your toe and fuck kind of person. But I really am not a screamer. Like, I had my bones rubbing together and I cried, I didn't scream. We really need to face a lot of these truths of our nations. Like the United States, it was really just a slave. There's people that still want to run it like a slave state. Now they're just not using black people, they're using white people. I was a working homeless person. There's a lot of people that are working over 40 hours a week like I did. I was a hardworking person, and a millionaire manipulated me and got free work out of me while he was still cushy. And I'm not okay with that. There's corruption up and down. And I know what it's like to be treated like a millionaire's kid. I know what it's like to go to these fancy places and be in those rooms. And I think everybody deserves that level of respect and equality. And I think that it's wrong that 1% of us thinks that that's only for them. I think it's just wrong. Because it shows how immature those people are. It shows how they feel so insecure and inadequate that they don't want the competition, because what if that black kid down the street is smarter than my kid? Well, you know what? If the black kid down the street is smarter than your kid, he deserves that spot in college and your kid doesn't. Or we should expand education so that more people can get an equal education that is actually adequate. Like Finland outlawed private school, and as a person that's been to private and public school, I personally think that what Finland did was very smart and we should do what they did. The equality that would happen when the billionaires' kids start going to school with your kids, it's a different experience. Things like the water gets cleaner. Right now, there's a really serious problem with lead in the school water. There's a lot of poor people being poisoned with lead, Teflon, and all of these other chemicals. Like Teflon is completely and totally toxic, and the company has been profiting off of it, knowing it, and instead of telling people, they just studied their employees to see how sick they would get and see what levels made them sick, and then they calculated how long it would take the public to get sick. A lot of illnesses might be related to Teflon, and I really think it's immature to make money a tool that is supposed to make life easier so that we don't have to trade goods for services, more important than life. And people like Trump think that his money is more important than the lives of other people, and that's wrong. What is happening with coronavirus is immature, and it lacks accountability. And when psychopaths lack accountability, they will always abuse their power. And we've built into our system the ability for many Golden State Killers to exist. For all we know, the majority of murders simply police officers that are serial killers. I don't know, but I would want to know, and I don't think that we should give the opportunity for serial killers to join the police and become the next Golden State Killer. I don't think we should do that. I think that we should start asking ourselves, what is the truth of this life? What is the truth of this hurricane of life? And what are we going to do to make it healthier? We don't have to be perfect. We don't have to strive for the best of everything and do this marketing bullshit, because the United States has really always been marketing. The land of milk and honey, the streets paved with gold. Ah, bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. It was all marketing bullshit. We were a country that was a slave state. We have less mobility than ever because right now there are trillions of dollars that used to be circulating through all 300 million people, but 1% of us feels more entitled to it. So they took trillions of dollars and they literally are hoarding it overseas and in houses that remain vacant most of the year. How is that healthier for our country? How is it healthier to get rid of estate taxes for those people so they can keep all of those houses that they never go to in the family? I don't see how it's healthy to have so many homes that you don't even know or visit, or I don't think it's healthy to have homes that you haven't even visited. And I don't think people realize how many people are doing this. It's 1% of us, but that's like a good handful of really powerful people. And with power should come more accountability. My experiences of being homeless and actually being treated what it's like to be treated like a normal person after growing up the way I did. Regular people are being fucked over, and I'm tired of being quiet about it. So I hope that you can understand that you can take more control of your mind than you think, but it's not in the ways that you've been taught. And a lot of the things that we've been taught are bullshit, and somebody just needs to do the right thing. And because I've had the luxury of time, I feel this is an opportunity for me to share. And it also propels me to do more, to grow more. I waited a long time. I haven't posted in a long time because I don't want to post just to post. I want to post because I have something to say that's important. And I want to have something to say that is important in a way that is good. And I feel good about as an artist, because at the end of the day, I'm an artist sharing the truth of my life and what I see. And that doesn't mean I'll be perfect. It means that I'm doing my best with what I have and the opportunities that I see within my life. And that is one way that I see what I have and create beauty from it. So I hope that you can have a beautiful day, because you realize that you too can appreciate the beauty around you. You can also see the things that you want to improve, see the things you want to change. And then ask yourself, what new tools and things do I want to learn to do something different? What else could I learn and do and integrate into this? Because there's so much more in this world that we never thought of. Like, I learned things from shamans that just blow my mind. And it's because they lived such a vastly different life than I did. And when we push ourselves to extremes, we can learn a lot. So I hope that I can share that with you. And I hope that you do have a beautiful day because you do that. Bye! That was tricky. The pen is mightier than the sword.